Thanks very much. We haven't got that much time today, so I'm going to be brief. I've circulated some papers which relate to a very important project that has been conducted under the auspices of the Chipley Centre nationally, and it's called the Inclusive Prosperity Project. What we've done through the Inclusive Prosperity Project is build on a report that was released internationally through the Centre of American Progress about 18 months ago. And what it relates to is the impact on developed economies of growing wealth inequality and income inequality, and what that actually means for the future, not just of the global economy, but also of democracy itself. Because growing wealth and income concentration has now become such an issue, it is threatening the stability of the democratic process itself, and causing a lurch to the right in many parts of the world, most notably in the United States, and you see this in the rise of the Tea Party and ultimately Donald Trump. Australia has done much better in terms of distributing the benefits of growth than just about any other developed economy over the last 30 years. But those gains are very much under threat here as well. So what we do about the growing concentration of wealth and income in our country and in other developed countries around the world is perhaps the most urgent issue in global politics and global debate. And a very important part of that is how we deal with climate change, which in itself is a very serious economic issue. So the Centre for American Progress and now the Chipley Centre in Canberra have produced a number of papers about this, and you'll hear more from the Chipley Centre in the next couple of months. So in the papers I've distributed, please have a look at some of the references if you want to look at the background material. I think we all know that growing concentrations of wealth and income have had a dramatic impact in the United States, and you can see that in some of the charts that have been circulated. That impact has not been as bad in Australia as it has been in most other developed economies. But now you've got the bastion of trickle-down economics, the International Monetary Fund, reversing a 30-year attachment to trickle-down economics, now arguing that the more concentrated wealth and income is, the weaker economic growth is, and the more we spread the benefits of growth, the stronger growth is. If there is one thing driving the polarisation and the drive to the right in global economics and politics at the moment, it has been the collapsing living standards of average working people. That is demonstrated most nakedly in the United States, where the incomes of people on median incomes there have not actually changed in 30 years. In Australia, during the same period, they've actually increased by 50%. That is what is driving so much of the xenophobia, which is now evident in politics internationally. If you feel threatened, if your income is insecure, if you see no future, then you don't have optimism about the future, and you then opt for much more simplistic solutions. And that is a tailor-made situation for xenophobia and racism, which we are now seeing emerging around the world. So this is a very important project, because if the Labor Party wants to be here in 30 years in Australia and succeed like it has over the past 100 years, then we've got a lot more to do in terms of our policy offering to the Australian people to maintain our position. All around the world, social democratic parties are in strike and are collapsing. And nowhere is that more evident than what is happening to the Labor Party in Great Britain. It's also partially happened to the Democrats in the United States, and they're not in any way necessarily secure for their future as well. We can all take heart in terms of the outcome of the last federal election, that we took down the trickle-down economics of Abbott and Turnbull. We took it front on and took it down, but not enough to win. Turnbull's offering of a $50 billion tax cut to the largest corporations in the world would not only have done nothing, absolutely nothing for economic growth and jobs, but would further increase the concentration of wealth and income in our economy, and had an even bigger effect on economic growth and living standards overall. The problem is we didn't win. We got very close to winning, and we did run a very traditional Labor campaign, but we didn't run it hard enough in the areas that mattered most to actually win the election. And two of those areas that are critical in my view for the future are progressive taxation and enhancing the voice of workers. We should have run far harder against Turnbull on the tax evasion of multinational companies and other corporates and wealthy individuals in Australia, and what that is doing to weaken our economic growth. We should have also run far harder on their attack on the trade union movement. Because there is one thing that stands out. When you look at the growing concentration of income and wealth across developed economies, you can actually plot it to the decline of the trade union movement. There is a distinct correlation between the loss of voice of working people and concentrations of income and wealth around the world. So particularly when it comes to the capacity of organised labour and individuals who are not necessarily in unions to have their voices heard, this is a huge issue out there, and it is one that has to be pushed very hard if we are to hold in a whole group of people who expect Labor to look after working people. And that can't work if you don't have a progressive system of taxation as well. So as we go forward and we have the policy debates that we're going to have today, we have to be aware that Australian Labor has had, over 100 years, perhaps the most successful mix of policies to ensure that we grow with equity. And the key to our success in the future is to make sure we hang on to those as strongly as we can, update them into a contemporary environment. What are they? Good fiscal and monetary policy. It doesn't mean we can spend what we like, when we like, any time. Just good fiscal and monetary policy based on standard Keynesian economics is what we need. Secondly, we need a strong view about worker voice and how it's represented in the workplace and in the political system. We need a rock solid commitment to affordable health and education, and most importantly, a strong commitment to progressive taxation. That's the big lesson for the future for the Labor Party, not just at the federal level, but at the state level. That's the unifying theme that we need to put in place, and if we can do that, we as a social democratic movement can not only survive but prosper in the face of the rise and lurch to the right, not only here, but around the world. That's the task, and when you're talking about policy today, never forget it.